Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine. And so today we are going to be going through some aspects with regards to alerting. And for those of you that joined our webinar last month regarding some aspects on alerting, we're going to recover some of the key things in there, but this is very much about our new partnership with Everbridge. And so this morning, we are going to be looking at, say, some tips and tricks on configuration of Orion for alerting. We're going to be looking at the Everbridge Response Management Platform, where we're going to be showing you the alerting functionality within Orion, how very much this integrates to the Everbridge Response Management Platform. And so from that this morning, thank you very much for joining us, Mike. Mike, you there?
Yeah, hi Mark, and hi everybody. Nice to be invited to this. Thank you very much.
So Mike is going to be showing us through the Everbridge side of things. So recently we partnership with Everbridge. We've had a lot of interest recently and a lot of discussions with our customers around alert management. The fact that we are seeing common issues with alert management, not just about how to kind of tune them and create them. Obviously, we've been working with customers for a long time on that, but really about how they get managed, how they get workflow through an organization. The platform, especially if you have multiple modules, can be generating lots of communication from an alerting point of view. And we are constantly seeing that people do not want to send every alert to their help desk platform, to ServiceNow or to Remedy or to SolarWinds Web Help Desk. So from that point of view, we've seen a very strong driving need for our customers to have something to act as the kind of middleware layer between Orion and many other solutions they will have in their organization that are generating alerts and event messages that will collate, will review, and perform direct action. So what we're going to see today is how Everbridge can work for you to provide this kind of management functionality and the benefits that such a platform is going to bring. So thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today to take us through that. So in terms of who we are, for those of you not familiar and not been joining us on our recent webinars, Prosperon, we've been running up to 13 years now. We are very much dedicated into the network and systems monitoring space, SolarWinds partners, and as I say, today is all very much about the launch of our partnership with Everbridge. We do a lot of professional services days, training, and provide support to our customers. We have a YouTube channel. These are regular events that we hold, and so from that point of view, if there are interesting things from today, then I certainly recommend you, if you haven't seen our recent webinars on alerting and management, reporting and a few other pieces, then our YouTube channel will have all of those historic videos. Now we're going to kick off here just asking you guys to complete a poll. For this, just kind of get you involved, get you looking at the screens, and it's also useful for us to kind of an understanding on where you are at. So if you wouldn't mind just completing the poll for us, and we'll have a look and see how we get on with things. So out of the 4 responses, yeah, there's a very quick winner. Yeah, okay, so on the screen you should be able to see now that the vast majority of you put there as quick response and resolution. Now clearly that is very much about what we're doing. There's very much the expected result that we had, that it's very important that the right people see the right messages. So from that, it's the workflow that's generated from the alerting out into a protocol, into a messaging, into a system that allows you to action and deal with these very quickly. It's very much the fundamental of any good alerting system. So as we move forward, we have a number of challenges. Now on the screen, you will see that we've got on our screenshot, and this is a sample, but this is very close to what we see on a regular basis with our customers. The fact that maybe emails are going out and those emails are being stored in a specific mailbox, and the quantity of them is just so great they get left. And as you can see, once they start getting up to those kind of numbers, no one is ever going to start working through them effectively. And when that happens, the whole benefits of alerts disappears. The whole benefits and function of a monitoring platform is significantly reduced. So hopefully what you're going to get from today is how you can look at taking better control. You should not be generating hundreds of alerts per day. You will see on the screen at the moment, in terms of alerting output, accuracy is important, understanding. So whether you're presenting this in the dashboard display of Orion, whether you are using an external protocol, here obviously we are highlighting the benefits of implementing a management layer, a manager of managers for alerting. The important thing is that you receive them, you trust them, and you can process them in an efficient manner. All of this is clearly around making sure that your SLA targets and your mean time to resolution figures are as best and as low as they can be. Now, the fundamentals of what we are talking about here is making sure the right people at the right time get the right alerts. It's very much a buzz phrase here in terms of discussions that we have with customers. Directing communication, having a method that on-call engineers are receiving these messages. And so from that point of view, you need to have the right information in them. You don't want to be just here's a no down alert. It needs to have enriched information. If they've got an on-call engineer that receives that at 3 o'clock in the morning, the more information that we can provide it in that communication, the better that person is going to be to get on and resolve it and deal with it efficiently. And also in terms of this last one, getting it into your help desk platform. As I said, we don't want to be throwing everything to the help desk platform, but that's why we've looked at Everbridge and we've partnered with them, because we have customers that are pushing everything to help desk, and then the service desk staff are kind of complaining constantly that all they're doing all day is clicking delete and making alerts being received that aren't valid, taking them off the list. It wastes time, it wastes resources. It's not the efficient way of dealing with things. And you can see at the bottom here, alert on things which are actionable. It's such a critical concept and something that is difficult. There are complex environments, so that is very much a key to take away, understanding which things you actually need to be generating. So we want to have an alert strategy in place. We want to make sure that we review what alerts we need. As I say, actionable ones are the primary and really only ones that should be there. Who and where and how they are receiving them. And so from that point of view, as I say, it's getting them into a position where the right people are seeing them at the right time, i.e. you're not asking someone to do something when they're not on call or those kind of things. And so from then, it's then processing it through the system. There's audit visibility, the fact that there is a CI associated with this, and we can start following it through the history and all the analysis that comes with that. Now, in terms of Orion, there are some key things. We want to make sure that the alerting output is rich, that it contains useful information, and we want to make sure that we are using intelligence in the way that we do things. So we've got two of our primary functions here: custom property usage and object level thresholds. I'm going to show you that in a moment. And then the last one there, and very much custom properties and alert level thresholds are in line with this. We want to create as few alerts definitions as possible. We don't want to be in a position where we are having hundreds of alerts with overlapping rules, and it just adds to complexity. Okay, so let's go into our demo now. And the first screen that I have in front of us here is our alert analysis page. So for customers that we've been working with, we often will put this in place for them because this is such a critical function. We are seeing a report mechanism here where we can identify, and if I hover over this example here, that one device is generating more than 50% of the alerts. Well, is that correct? Is that valid? Well, for me, if I'm receiving this and I'm seeing this analysis, my first condition here is, well, there's something tragically wrong with that configuration, with that device, with something to do with that object. And so I can look at this and I can do this analysis and I can highlight. And what we often find when we do health checks for customers is that the kind of top 10% of devices generate the top 90% of the alerting output. So there are some very quick wins which can be processed from having this kind of information available to you. Here we've got the chart by a definition. So which alerts are generating the most? And you can see immediately there's a correlation. This device here is clearly an F5. Yeah, the timings and the stack chart here confirms that, and therefore we've got a potential issues with our GTM, and therefore we are making sure that the F5 administrator is working with this and dealing with this appropriately. So one of the key tips is, so here I've got an example of one of our best practice Cisco network device alerts. Now this is high CPU. There is a default out-of-the-box high CPU alert provided by SolarWinds, and it's all right, it's good enough, but it's not what we need to be having. The default value literally says the CPU level is greater than 70%. Well, that is not valid for all devices. That's absolutely not right in terms of a threshold for all devices. So from this point of view, what we've done is we've taken that alert, we've split it up, and for Cisco devices, we're saying actually only when the critical threshold is true, because here we have the ability, so I'm looking at a device here, okay, so we're in edit properties. We could have edited multiple devices, by the way. And what I've done here is I've overridden the default values. So if I just take that back, and you can see the default values are 80 and 90. Well, I'm overriding them. I want to make sure that I'm, again, using intelligence. And in this way, we are using a calculation, a formula. We are taking a mean average. We've got a weighting value, a standard deviation value, and we're using the device's historic data to determine what is an appropriate increase in resources, because it's not always about a hard set number. It's about, has there been a big change in resource consumption? Is that something that I need to look at? So one of my colleagues, Rob, created a blog post. So this is available on our website. So under our website, under Insight, we have our blog post where it goes into good detail about how to benefit from such configuration. So from your point of view, taking that, applying it to your alert rules is a very good way of restricting the quantity of alerts that will come out. So just very quickly, we've got critical threshold is reached. We're checking that the iOS version is not empty. We've got a valid device, only to Cisco devices, and not down. And under our actions, you can see that we've got this extension. So we're looking at a process lookup. So what I was referring to in terms of enrichment of alerting, what we have here is the fact that we are executing NCM. So we need the NCM module. We're doing a show to bring back the process, basically a top view, which process is using the most CPU, and we're injecting the results of that into, in this case, an email. It could be an Everbridge response. It could be ServiceNow. It could be any of those. So we're literally capturing additional information from the device and inserting into the alert. So we've seen two things there about filtering, about enriching content. On this example I've got here is where we are using a dynamic custom property value to determine who's going to receive alerts. So for one of our devices here, we're going to send it to support. For this device here, maybe this is something that I want to receive specifically. Maybe I'm doing some development testing on, or any alerts I want it to come to me. Maybe this is the network team versus the server team versus the security team. So we can put in distinct URLs, email addresses. We can put in distinct addresses here. So this as a value, when we're looking at the email, we would just put that variable in the recipient list. So from that point of view, as I say, this would be the variable for that entry there. So that, as I say, allows you to consolidate alerts. You don't need to have 100 different alerts configured for different parties. You can use one alert and distribute that interactively. Okay, so what we're going to do here is have a process through where we're going to generate an alert against a device that's going to send to Everbridge. So let me just fire this up. I've just got a trigger that I need to process. So here I have fired off an alert. So if I just click refresh any second now, you'll see hopefully at the top of the screen. Okay, so there we go. So we have fired off a device node down alert. So this object, this router, has generated an Everbridge alert. And so what we're doing here is we're processing an alert into Everbridge so that management platform can now do its thing. And you can see down here we have captured back the incident ID. So we have that reference. This may be a hot link off to the URL for that. All those things are absolutely possible. And so very clearly we can see that we've got a critical device down. We know that this is a P1 device because our definition down here is that we are looking for this device, P1, and so we're generating our alert off to Everbridge. So Mike, I'm going to bring you in here if that's okay. So
yeah, that's great.
Just going to give you presentation control.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, we can see your screen, and excellent. So on your screen is a mobile.
Yeah, so I'm displaying my my mobile app. Obviously, we've got Everbridge configured so that I'm receiving these alerts for this demo, and also Mark's receiving the alerts. So we have a number of people who are receiving the alerts based around this, and you can see 10:16. I don't know actually when Mark hit the button, but it wasn't much before 10:15 that he actually hit the button to send the alert. I've received it at 10:16. This is actually the Everbridge app I'm running with, and what we can see is, having alerted this way, I have an ability to go into it. Mark's been talking about all the details that we can pass, that he's passed into the Everbridge system, and the Everbridge system has a capability of displaying that and being configured to do that. And we'll go through a little bit of that later on in the ITA demo. But for now, I'm just going to click here to confirm receipt. So I'm going to press that button on my screen. I've now confirmed back to the Everbridge system that I'm engaged on this ticket, on this incident that's been instigated from the.
Actually, Mike,
from the
so have I. So we're both getting into the mix on that.
Excellent. So we'll see that a little bit more as we go through into the actual demo. What I want to do now is I just want to bring up a bit of a presentation to take you through effectively what you've just seen, and then we'll delve into a lot more of what we've seen on the end of this. So, you know, we talked about the collaboration, the partnership. You know, Everbridge are very pleased at this agreement. Very excited at the relationship with Prosperon as well. It's going to be a great partnership and great team going forward. But let's talk about Everbridge and some of the reasons why this platform is really important. Now, Everbridge as a company, you may or may not have heard of us, are actually a critical event management platform. So we send out critical event notifications. Now, in this case, we're talking about for IT. We've taken an input from a SolarWinds system. It sent a message straight to Everbridge, and Everbridge has alerted myself and Mark and maybe a couple of other people around to actually engage us to try and fix and resolve this problem. But one of the important things about the Everbridge platform is it is also around critical event notification. So terrorist alerts, you know, earthquakes, weather, all of those kind of platforms. And the reason I bring that out is because it is a platform. It's a SaaS-based platform sitting out there in the cloud. It has the capability of sending thousands of messages at the same time, ultimately a million messages at the same time. Now, why is that important to you as an IT organization? Well, I don't know if you've ever tried to send Happy New Year on New Year's Eve by text or something like that. It doesn't go through, does it? We all know. Actually, I was talking to someone yesterday who said they have the same problem at their business at lunchtime. Everyone breaks for lunch at the same time. You can never send a text message because everyone else is sending text messages. So, you know, text messaging, you've got to have a massive platform out there, but we're not just about text messaging. We're about communication, and that's the key. You'll see through the presentation how many other modalities we have. But it's all about, you know, assessing the severity of a situation, locating the people you need, acting and responding to that situation, and then having the ability at the end of it to go off and analyze it. And I've brought this slide up purely to show you that Everbridge isn't only an ITA company, and this is very important. We're into a number of other areas. We have 4 products: mass notification, safety connection, visual command center, and IT alerting. Today, we're purely talking about IT alerting, but as I say, the company has been around since about 2002 and is really about mass notification. So when we start applying this to IT, you know, minutes of outage cost lots of money. And it's critical that you get your notifications through to your resolvers, your teams, your management at the right time and as quickly as possible, which is why, as I say, really showing you the quality and the depth of the critical event management platform. Let's now go into specifically the IT side of the house and ITA, which is, you know, my specialist subject, as you might say, within the company. And we're looking at a number of technologies. You know, we always used to work just as ITA, just on that top line, integrating with ServiceNow and Cherwell and Remedy and all those the ITSM platforms. But many customers have started recognizing that creating an incident isn't the thing they want to do first at all times. They want to have a slight investigation before they start creating an incident. Or they might find that creating an incident actually delays the response and the ability for people to get engaged and resolve it. There's many other reasons why you might want to automate this process, which is what Everbridge is really doing. There's situations of, you know, if I was a resolver and I was laying in bed asleep at 3 AM in the morning, you can ask my wife, someone wakes me up, I'm pretty grumpy. And the person who's going to wake me up is generally a junior knock operator who's working at 3 AM in the morning, who really doesn't want to call me anyway and is afraid to call me. And then I respond in my grumpy mood at 3 AM in the morning. It's pretty awful, you know. So there's relationships, there's problems with people being afraid to call people, which delays processes. You know, if you automate this process so that you end up with an alert, in this case, what we're showing today is a direct alert coming in from SolarWinds Orion, and it comes in and it says, okay, we have a problem out here. Let's go and work out who we need to contact and contact them directly. But that's the key. And we think about this in today's methodology as sort of 4 pillars in service ops, security ops, DevOps, and you know, backup provisioning and restore kind of environments, as well as obviously emergency notification from a platform of a terrorist alert or something like that. Obviously, these teams need to work as effectively and as quickly as possible. So you're going to see some advantages within this platform of how you might engage and act with all the different parties that are involved in it. So as the screen shows, multiple events mean multiple teams. And we might have got an alert from one environment that says, oh, you know, there's a CPU running high, as Mark was just demonstrating. You know, this is running at a critical level. But we might also be getting an alert from the network team or the server team saying the web servers are running slow or the database is behaving strangely. And you can use Everbridge to actually collate those 3 different pieces of information and actually start engaging the right people. So, you know, as you start working through an incident, you know, if you just got an alert from SolarWinds that said, oh, you know, the CPU on this device is running, you know, at 95%, and therefore there's something wrong. Someone will be working on that at 3 o'clock in the morning and trying to find the person they want to get. But also, they might not notice that the web servers are running, you know, 30% slower than they should do. Maybe they're not noticing the alert fatigue is causing them not to see the access on the database. And all those things are becoming a problem. Technology like Everbridge can bring in a solution that says, we're not going to worry about a knock operator noticing all these things. We're going to take some action. We're going to engage resolvers straight away to understand what the actual problem is. And this is why, you know, things like DDoS attacks cost us so much of a problem, because they can appear in so many different ways, and we won't be confident totally about what's happening. The other thing is at the bottom of the slide, it talks about senior management. And then on the left of the slide, it talks about impacted business users. Think about an application in your environment today. You know, not only do you have a service that's down that you've got to engage your resolvers on, but your service might be a commercial service. You might be an Amazon or an eBay, and your web service has gone down. Well, you know, that's costing you millions of dollars a minute because the transactions going through those web servers are really key. So senior management need to know. Impacted business users are, or just users, are going to be notifying you that they're having a problem with your environment. So your help desk is going to be inundated with users who are basically saying, oh, you know, something's happened. And of course, one person who sees the application frozen on their screen might say, well, my mouse doesn't work, or my enter key doesn't work. It's actually the application is frozen. They don't realize that. They think it's something wrong with their PC. So lots of input to help desks that really isn't helpful. And actually, Gartner.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Mike. I thought you were a pausal point there. That's a really important thing because communication is such a critical aspect here. Yes, you're talking about resolvers getting on and fixing things, but when you are communicating with your users and letting them know proactively that there are issues, then the load on the service desk is going to be reduced. People are feeling looked after in the fact that these things are being dealt with. So communication is such a key thing in these kind of scenarios.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and that's great to interrupt. Don't worry about that. That's good. So really, you know, a lot of these things happen, and you might be sitting there as a participant to this webinar, going, "Oh, yeah, I sort of get that. I see that, and I see what's happening." But you know, Gartner tell us that you're not alone. Coordinating incident response across any organisation really is the biggest challenge today. Trying to get the right people engaged at the right time, and that's what we're about to change. So however Everbridge goes and actually reduces the time, if we think about any of these things as like an MTTR, a mean time to respond or repair, we have a detect phase. Well, we've just had that detect phase. Mark has sent off an alert from the Orion platform to come out and send Everbridge a message, which we saw on my phone earlier. So that detect phase has happened. The next phase is the respond phase. Now, as you can see, Forrester actually say up to 70% of the total time to repair something is taken up with this respond phase. I would sort of, my feeling talking to customers is it's somewhere near, you know, 50 to 60%, maybe a little lower than what they're saying, but you know, let's use fear, uncertainty, and doubt and say it's 70%, shall we? But really, it's a large percentage of time of the overall time it takes to respond. You then have your investigate phase, what's going on? You've got all your resolvers together. You then have your remediate phase. Let's go and try and fix something. Let's try and actually do something. And then we have our validate phase, and our service then becomes restored. If we think of that entire cycle, what Everbridge is really driving is it's greatly reducing that 70% that Forrester talk about, the respond time. As you've seen, the alert came through to Everbridge, and I immediately got a message into an app. In actual fact, Mark will have got a message into his text, but there's email, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then also in the remediate function, there's functionality within Everbridge today that we can integrate with third-party tools of all kinds. And we might use the remediate functionality for a knock operator or someone to actually, before they engage in a conference call or something, they might want to run some tests. So from their phone, rather than just clicking on it and saying, yep, I'm engaged on it, they might have a button that says, go and run an audit on the web servers, go and run an audit on these, you know, this network. Go and understand if the configurations change from where we think it is. You know, network devices have a startup and a run-in configuration. You can check whether the run-in and startup are different. Are the run-in and active different? Stuff like that before you actually get into the conference itself. So you can go into a conference, you can go into an environment with a team to knuckle down and figure it out, and you can get a lot more information ahead of time, which is why the remediate phase comes in. And the last thing down at the bottom, you know, this is a very disputed figure, the Pomon Institute say that 1 minute of downtime, an average of 1 minute of downtime, costs you 8,900 minutes. I have some kind of desktop alert from my Everbridge environment, but $8,900 dollars per minute of downtime. Now, I would argue that that's reasonably accurate, because as an average, you've got people like eBay and Amazon and stuff like that, where their total business is based around, selling on the web. There's lots of companies like that, and a minute of downtime of their environment could well be a lot more than that. Whereas, okay, there might be another company whose main business is on the high street, and they have a much smaller web presence, where that it's not costing them $8,900 a minute. But the truth is, when you start adding the lack of access, the lack of input, the lack of money coming into the business, we pretty quickly ramp that money up. So it's something to be considered. Okay, so let's look at the actual platform and what actually happened just now when we sent a critical event into the front end of Everbridge. Let's see what happened. So as you can see, we can integrate with lots of different platforms. We've worked with Prosperon to actually get the integration with SolarWinds working. These, bear in mind that the SolarWinds environment is obviously within the Prosperon environment, and Everbridge is out there in the cloud. And I happen to be sitting in an office in Maidenhead, so we're all over the place. But the technology is very powerful. Once the event is detected, whether that's actually in via our integration, as with SolarWinds in this morning's integration through our iPaaS environment, whether it's an ITSM or a service desk incident that gets created, we have email ingestion, so we could even have you emailing alerts into the tool. We have a REST API for deep level integration with various products and two-way integration, and then we have a manual method, so you can actually go and create incidents within Everbridge, which I'll actually be showing you in the demo in a moment. So we have a number of ways you can get the alert into the Everbridge system, okay, which as you've seen, we've already done. Then the next thing is really trying to understand about that alert and understand details. So the alert comes in, and we would have looked at the alert, and the first thing we would have gone and said, well, where has it come from? Okay, it's come from a SolarWinds Orion environment. We've seen it's a P1, so it's a critical event. And in this case, we've seen it's to do with a network device, and it's a Cisco network device. So we would have taken all that information, understood that it is something that we want to activate, that we want to go and get resolvers involved in. So it would have gone into the smart routing, and the smart routing goes, okay, it's this technology, it's this issue, it's a P1, these things. The next process it takes is to decide who it's going to send to. Now, who it sends to is decided on all sorts of possibilities. You can just have properties against users that says, this is a Cisco expert, notify him anytime, or her anytime you have a Cisco outage with any of these devices. It could be that it looks at a calendar, a shift calendar, and says, this person's on call at this point in time, we notify them. Many different ways of understanding that, but the smart routing takes care of all of that for you. You've not got a knock operator sitting there at 3 a.m. in the morning going, how are you gonna get hold of these people? We talked about waking me up at 3 in the morning. If someone sent a text message or an email to me, it would come through to my phone, but to be perfectly frank with you, my phone is on mute at night. Absolutely. So they're not going to wake me up. What they would do, because of smart routing, they could actually choose to call me on my landline at home, which would be a guaranteed way of waking me up. My daughter was out at a party last night. I said to her, if you need a lift home, she said, well, I'm not going to leave the party till 3 in the morning. I said, well, you better call me on the landline if you need a lift home.
On a school night?
Yeah, she's just left school, so yeah, same sort of thing. So yeah, so she didn't call me, I have to say, so I'm wide awake right now. But that goes into our multimodal communications, and that gives us the ability to choose how we actually alert people and how we communicate with people. It's all very well to say, I've received it on an app and Mark's received it on a text, but you might need it on a voice via a standard phone as opposed to a smartphone or something. You may need it on many different modalities, and that's really key. It's not only the breadth of over 100 modalities that Everbridge has to use to communicate with you, it's also to do with the redundancy. Both voice and text and data redundancy is really important, because if you start thinking about communicating around the globe, which might not be necessary with this particular audience, but if you were thinking about communicating around the globe, you have to have multiple routes to any individual ultimately, because during the day you might get a certain provider in India who decides that they're going to block certain traffic, or they're going to change traffic patterns, and you need to be able to guarantee communication through, which is something Everbridge does all the time. Obviously, because of its emergency notification, we need to guarantee communication there. So ITA benefits from that, of course, because you can communicate with anyone around the world pretty instantly. So having said that, the next part of the phase is the ACT. We have our IT responders. We have our senior management. We have our impacted business users. Those groups can be anything. Obviously, the first one, the IT responders, is important. They're the people who are going to fix the problem. They're the people who will get a message like I got, like Mark got, that says, please respond to this incident, please respond to this ticket, and we will start integration. We'll possibly use the smart orchestration to go and run an audit on our web servers and see if they're all configured correctly, or our network devices, or whatever we do. And then we might be dropped into a collaboration of a voice conference, which we'll actually try to do live in a few minutes. And then there's also Slack and Sharp communication channels, a bit like a standard messaging platform, and we're integrating more messaging platforms as we go forward. All of these things are recorded and associated with the ticket. Mark, was there something?
Yeah, so I was just going to, so this kind of correlates back to what I was saying at the beginning. That's smart orchestration, where we are validating. We based this example today on a P1. Not every P1 is equal, and so we often see situations where the thing's just been misconfigured, they're misaligned. The fact that there is a 3 o'clock in the morning wake the engineer up no matter what for a P1, but then there are other P1s where that's not the case. I was talking to a customer yesterday where one of the engineers was complaining about, got up at 2:30, I think it was, on Monday night, because an FTP server was down. Well, the FTP server was just a side tool used by the engineers to do firmware upgrades, and they weren't doing any, so it wasn't a genuine situation. So using that orchestration to validate and confirm if an alert is genuine, and that whole thing with that collaboration, this is the reason why I'm always saying to our customers, whenever I speak to them on alerting, email, it's okay, but no one takes ownership. If 5 people get an email, who's owning that? There's no real good quality communication between an email protocol, whereas what you've got on the screen there and all of the other ones you've mentioned are bringing people together dynamically so they can immediately chat, discuss, and action what needs to happen.
Brilliant, thanks, Mark. Mark brings some really important things. It's about being responsible and being responsive and being associated with these things, and actually assigning tasks to people and making sure they're doing them is really key to all of this process. So we have that collaboration zone, which we'll set up a quick call between me and Mark. Won't mean much to you because obviously we'll be on phone calls anyway, but you'll see the demonstration. Then we have the capability of smart analytics at the bottom there. A lot of us will do a post analysis of what went wrong. Why did the web servers go wrong? Why did the network device go wrong? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Not many people will actually start analyzing how they responded to it. And I was a webinar the other day with an expert on GDPR, and this was something that started to come out as far as GDPR is concerned. If you have an outage, if you have an incident, you need to be able to report how you responded to it, and that's exactly what these analytics will give you. The ability to understand who responded, who didn't respond, why they responded, how quickly they responded, and we'll see that in just a second. Okay, So that's really the whole process of assess, locate, act, and analyze. Really key to the way Everbridge works and the solution drives. Now we're going to go over to a live environment and try and look at what happened at that alert that came in from the SolarWinds platform just now. So the first thing I'm looking at is actually the dashboards, which is part of the analysis, but I'm going to click over to the incidents. Now, this is the incident management platform inside Everbridge. This doesn't actually have to be referenced at all. If you were using ServiceNow or BMC Remedy or Sherwell or any of those other platforms, they can integrate in the same way, and your incident management will be controlled through those. This is obviously a demonstration of the integration between Prosperon, SolarWinds, and Everbridge, and this is key. So we're just going to use incident management platform.
But this is exactly what we have partnered with Everbridge for. Clearly, we're working with large enterprises with their SolarWinds platforms, and they are going to be a very strong generator of alerts. This a heavyweight monitoring platform, but there are other systems in an organization which are going to be generating alerts, whether it's a SIEM solution, whether it's other monitoring tools, whether it's vendor-owned tools, and so they're all going to be generating event and alert conditions. And this middleware layer, you're liaising with ServiceNow, with Remedy, with Sherwell, with all the ITSM and help desk platforms. So acting as that middle point, doing that analysis is very much our driver. Is we want to have that collation layer.
Excellent, thanks, Mark. So here we can see, and I can't believe that it was 26 minutes ago and 2 seconds ago that we sent that alert. We haven't responded particularly well, but obviously we're demoing. So here's the incident. It's a P1 incident direct from SolarWinds. The title is obviously configurable to however you want it. And you can see here in the message, this is the message that was sent. A description of the alert. It's a P1 incident. It has a device name. It has the owner as the network. We know that the device is in Manchester New Street physically. If we look over here, we can see that we reached out to 3 people. 2 people have confirmed and 1 person has not confirmed. And if we look down at the bottom, we can see Mark and myself have both responded. And we can view the details of how they responded. But you know, Mark responded via his primary SMS platform, and I used Contact Bridge, which happens to be the application, the Everbridge application with a mobile push alert. So this is starting to correlate details of who responded, how they responded, when they responded. Okay, all of these things are very powerful. Now, Mark, I don't know if you can go to your text message and join the conference bridge at this point. I'm going to bring my screen up, and I'm going to join my conference bridge from here. You can see the power of this is it's a one-click conferencing. So I have a button on the screen, as you can see. I'm going to click on it. It's going to call. I'll put it on speakerphone. Hopefully you'll hear as well. So it's ringing. Okay. Looks like both Mark and I have joined because we haven't got music playing, which we would see if we had music playing. And if I go back to the ticket, we should see a change here. Where we now see the conference bridges live. Okay, so I can click on that link, and now you have full management of your conference bridge as you'd expect to. So this is Everbridge Smart Conferencing. You can use it. You saw it was a local number that we've called and we've used in this environment. Because of smart conferencing, you can have local numbers wherever that person is. So it's not running up huge phone bills. You can obviously use 0800 numbers if you choose, but it gives you an ability to then manage anyone who's on the conference call. You'll see who's on the conference call, see who's not joined, see who has joined, and then you have full functionality of muting them, logging them off, ending the call, etc., etc. And this call is being recorded as well.
That's a global number, isn't it? So you were saying about local numbers. That could be the local numbers for the regions.
Absolutely. So
is that right?
Yeah, we call it globally local, I think, or locally global.
Got to have a marketing buzzword.
Yeah, it's good to have a marketing buzzword. Very good. So yeah, so from that point of view, the numbers for the users are global or local global. So you know, it's not a huge cost to get the music, the information back and forth to the users. I'm gonna, as you can see, Mark's actually just left the conference. That's fine. I'm gonna end the conference.
No one was talking to me.
Oh, well, I'm probably on mute this end as well. So I'm going to end the conference, but that's fine. That gets saved. I really hated that. That sounded like the conference call had just hung up as well, but it was my phone hanging up. So we've got the conference call facility is there, and obviously we could have done some orchestration pieces as well. You have the full details of what's happened, of how it's been driven, and it's driven through a template. So we built a template for this particular incident. It went off and it said it needs to communicate with certain people. In this case, it used some fixed addresses and fixed names, but ultimately it could be using anything as it goes through and searches. So here's the actual template that got called. And if we look, we can see some of the outgoing messages, and you'll see that down this right-hand side, you'll see the urgent communication that you would have seen on my Everbridge app. This is a priority incident, and it picked up the source system type. It got today's date, the current time, the description, the device name. You know, we didn't put the incident ID in, but you can have the incident ID in there as well. Mark would have received the top one, okay? Everything in parentheses is basically properties that are coming from the ticket that's been generated directly.
Yeah.
You can see further down.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Just on that, Mike, is we've only put a few in here, but again, customers that are on this session that we've worked with on alerting, you'll know that we will be putting a lot more information in this. The purpose of this is that when you receive the fact that this is a device or the particular owner is networks, Everbridge is going to take that information. It's going to say, okay, well, this content exists there. The owner was the network team, so therefore you're going to correlate that through to the on-call network engineers. Is that right?
Absolutely correct, and that's how the functionality of the smart routing works through this whole process. So we take information from the ticket, and then we figure out that information. We can also look at the on-call shift rotors, and also pass that through to the resolvers or the management, or and ultimately the management team. Because if you want to notify a management team that a web server is down, a business user, you don't want to send them this kind of information. So you actually have an alternative message that goes out at the same time as this, that is speaking in English. So it's, you know, there is a problem with the web server. You know, we wanted to make you aware of that. We are currently working on it. Those kind of pieces of text, as opposed to, you know, automated generated text from the alert that's come in. So it makes more sense. I talked about if someone would need to wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it would need to be the landline. We use a text-to-speech translation. If it happened to be going to a different country, we can include Google Translate in that as well. So you can still type your message in English and Google Translate will translate it. I'm completely aware that Google Translate isn't 100%, but I do believe it's enough, and our customers find it enoth to drive there.
Well, if the comedy aspects of the translation doesn't wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, then it's lost its benefit.
Absolutely. And then finally, you have a number of choices of message you can send. We sent a conference bridge message today to join the conference bridge and show you that functionality. But you could have sent a polling question, you know, in an example where there's a fire at a data center. You know, you might want to alert your people and say, are you close to that data center? Can you attend? You know, don't go in the building. Are you safe? You know, those kind of things. You know, might have engineers attending a particular event to fix something physically, and you might say, oh, hang on, you know, we need to make them aware of something else that's happening in the region. So you can use polling questions, and you can just use a standard message to send to them as well.
So on that polling questions, one of the thoughts that's come to my mind when I looked at that feature is when you are, because you're here and now, you're talking about the kind of resolvers. Yeah, you're creating this conference bridge, and us as resolvers, we're then going to go on and have a chat about how we're going to deal with this. But if this was a mass notification to the employees of the company, or to maybe even the customers of the company, things like that poll, that's a great way of soliciting information. Is, are you affected by this issue? Does that help the resolvers understand the impact of those issues in a clearer fashion?
That's absolutely correct, Mark. And if we think about emergency notification, I haven't really shown you or talked about how you can notify users, but in emergency notification, you can actually select a geographical area. In fact, in ITA, you can select a geographical area and say, anyone in this area be aware of this that's going on. It doesn't play correctly, in my mind, in an IT environment, but it might do. You might be looking for people in specific buildings to attend specific items, tracking people down. The product goes way beyond that. But what I suggest we do here is we break maybe for questions. What I would definitely recommend is that you've obviously heard us speak, and if you have any questions, quite happy to field those. If you want a more detailed, and we've only scratched the surface of this technology today, let's get together with Prosperon and let's try and understand what your requirements are, and we can maybe work through some more focused demos or workshops or meetings to really investigate what's an interest to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, please, on the GoToMeeting panel that you are all on, there is a question area. Please put your questions across. We'll be more than happy to answer them. So we have one question here. Can I restrict who is able to join the conference call?
Yeah, great question, and a regular one to be asked. Yes, you can. Only the people who are notified through the emergency note or through the notification can join the conference call. No one else can, so they are automatically blocked. The next question is usually, well, can I add someone who's not part of the call, who I've not alerted? Again, yes, you can. You can notify them in a number of different ways and invite them, or ultimately dial out to them and pick them up if you wish to.
So that's a circumstance where an alert's been generated, teams are going on, they identify that an SME or somebody needs to join that call. It's very easy mechanism to get that invite out to them in a live situation. Yes,
that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I've got a question on, so you'd love to see, there's a message from Adam, I'd love to see how the alert analysis charts were generated. Okay, so I'll provide some information on that, but actually there is one of our previous webinars where we go into a little bit more detail. So the reporting webinar. So Adam, I'll send you a link. Anyone else that wants that, please let us know via the question window. Should we send all alerts to Everbridge? That's a big question. So clearly, in terms of what we are looking for, we've discussed that Orion can generate quite a lot of alerts, but we can put the logic within Orion to control the alerting. We saw a couple of techniques using things like custom properties and thresholds on objects and good quality definitions. So we want to make control of the source as best we can, but we're not always able to do that. And so from that point of view, there is absolutely no reason why we would not send more alerts than probably we need to Everbridge, because then we've got that logic layer within Everbridge. And Mike, you were mentioning before about the orchestration function, that ability to kind of take an alert and say, oh, the one that we did was a node down or a high CPU, to then take that orchestration function to validate, is this still active? Does this parameter mean a number of other things before we then go on and action it? Is that right?
Absolutely correct. So you can do any sort of filtering on the front end. The filtering, obviously, in Orion is much more detailed than the filtering we're using on the front end of Everbridge. But we would be filtering on the criticality of it initially to understand whether it is a valid candidate for notifying people. And you're absolutely correct. We have orchestration on that front end that could also take data or information from the ticket and go and run an analysis. So maybe I used the scenario of a user being notified that that they were needed to be in thing, and they could press a button on their phone to go off and run an audit on their web servers. The truth is, actually, and I think Mark's sort of made me think about this a little bit more, if in an event of your web servers going slow, Everbridge would understand that, and you could actually kick off the audit before you go and notify or at the same time that you notify the resolvers, or you could do it before to really understand, as Mark said, if it really is still a problem. So yeah, that's a really good use case for orchestration as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're coming up to end of time. If anyone has any more questions, please put them in. But I'd just like to kind of wrap up. Thank Mike for his time. It's an excellent demonstration of what we want to achieve with Everbridge. And when I say what we want to get our customers to see the advantages of putting such a layer of alert management in place. The webinar today will be added to our YouTube channel, so if you've missed it, if you want to share it with your colleagues or pass on to someone else, please do so. Please keep an eye, as I showed you before, on our blog site, on our website, because we share a lot of information, we share a lot of tips and tricks, how-tos, kind of thought leadership things. So everybody, thank you very much for your time. I'm not seeing any more questions in. If you do have any questions, by all means, email us in, and as Mike said, if you have an interest in what you've seen here, please reach out to your account manager, and we'd be more than happy to discuss further your requirements and how the two solutions can be utilized for your benefit. So thank you everyone for attending today. Thanks once again, Mike.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.